Welcome to the weekly crypto check-in, your go-to podcast for navigating the wild world of cryptocurrencies, hosted by Robert Swarthout and Andres Sandate. Today, recorded on December 17th, 2025, we're diving into the latest market shifts, blockchain breakthroughs, and expert insights to keep you ahead of the curve. How's it going, Andres?
Hey, Robert. Good. It's good to see you, and happy holidays.
Yeah, same to you. And I guess we should, before we get rolling here, to tell everyone, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and all the things. And appreciate everyone listening throughout the year. It's been a crazy first year of this new administration, this new stance towards crypto, and I imagine 2026 has maybe some of the similar but different exciting things ahead. So fun times.
Yeah, definitely. Echo your comments to listeners. For all of you out there who have tuned into the show, whether live or on replay, we appreciate all the support, and certainly always welcome any feedback, comments, questions, or suggestions around how we can improve the show and help you guys gain a better understanding of crypto and the digital asset space. And one of the things that was kind of key to you and I deciding to do this on a consistent basis was trying to help people make sense of the asset class and the space as it gets more and more integrated into our daily lives, and also for users, whether they be advisors or individuals or even institutions who are trying to gain a perspective on all the headlines. So much of the space, as you know, Robert, researching it, investing in it, is covered in social media, particularly on X and other platforms that we're seeing a change in the mainstream media coverage. But I think, if we stick to the sort of core mission of trying to pull some key headlines that we think help advance the conversation without taking sides, hopefully we're doing right by our listeners. But it's been a fun year, and we appreciate all the support.
Yeah, indeed. Awesome. We'll jump into our first topic here. So,
yeah,
this is something that they have done a lot of testing around, but to kind of see it actually happening is cool. So Visa did a press release, so a full-on announcement from a company about they're using USDC, the stable coin, to do some settlement. This is a very small number for Visa right now. It's not like it's massive flows, but it's cool. They're doing it to help shorten the 7-day settlement windows. Obviously modernize liquidity and treasury management and all the things that come along with crypto, but it's cool. They're doing this initially with Cross River Bank and Lead Bank.
Yeah.
But I would imagine over time this expands, and this is Solana specifically USDC on the Solana blockchain. So,
yeah, I mean, a lot of, I would say, things from a thematic standpoint with this headline. We looked at 26. I think, individually, if people are investing in crypto, they might not be super excited about how the performance has been. It's been quite rocky here in recent months. But I think when you zoom out and you look at infrastructure and some of the, we call it, the plumbing and the core aspects to help take the asset class or blockchain and digital assets forward over the next, decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. I think these are the types of developments from an institutional perspective that will, they'll be easy to sort of overlook from a headline perspective, but they're pretty monumental when you think about how far, these key financial institutions have come in 25. So it gives, reason for optimism. And in fact, when you look at the analysts that cover Visa as a publicly traded company, one of the analysts at Bank of America, I'm reading, upgraded Visa, citing in part the development of their stablecoin prospects and their activity in crypto-related products. If you think about these legacy traditional financial companies, you immediately go to the likes of Visa and MasterCard and Discover and American Express, and you have to think that the technology is going to play a pretty pivotal and meaningful role in how those companies operate and do business going forward. So it's interesting to see how Wall Street and analysts are now taking note and in fact measuring perhaps their prospects for the company on what are they doing in these areas like stable
Yeah.
coins and other crypto aspects. And if you tie it all together, you know, when analysts talk and they cover these companies and they start
Mhm.
crypto and crypto related projects, that's going to move the market.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, and it's cool to see. The part that was surprising to me about this announcement, beyond just the timing of it, was they're using Solana because a couple months ago, Circle, the issuer of USDC, announced that they were building a purpose-built blockchain called ARC, um, that is going to be for stablecoin settlement. And Visa, at the time, was, I guess, somewhat loosely attached to that. They're a design partner, so they're doing that, and then on the side, they're doing this. Maybe they're going to have multiple, I guess, rails, you may call it, across crypto to do settlement, but it's cool to see. And I imagine we get a lot more news around this in the early part of 26. And you know, Visa, a lot of people don't know. Obviously, there's a lot of Visa cards out there, but Visa's quoted as saying like during like peak times, there's like 25,000 transactions a second. Many blockchains cannot handle that if they were to say Visa was to put all the cards on blockchain. So like there's a technology leap that still needs to happen. This is more the settlement behind the scenes where things getting batched up. And over time, I think that maybe you'll start to see more rapid fire stuff happen. But this is more of a end of day batching and kind of roll up of transactions. So pretty cool stuff. Moving on to topic number 2. This was anticipated, but I would have guessed this would have happened in early 26. So the OCC had 5 applications on their desk for approval for bank charters. Specifically, 3 of them were for new charters, or excuse me, 2 of them for new charters, and 3 of them were for converting state into federal charters. And these were all crypto companies. So it was Ripple, BitGo, Paxos, Circle, and Digital Assets. I forget who that one. That is Fidelity. So they all were working on these licenses. Again, we talked about this a couple months ago. This was the Bankers Association Union or something like that came
the
out.
ABA, yeah,
The ABA,
yeah.
Came out and said that these didn't need to happen, and it felt like just a stall tactic. So good to see that it moved forward, and these are all conditional. These are not final, and I don't even know if it becomes final how hard it would be to revoke one, because it could be the whim of an administration here. This would have not happened last year, and it's happening this year. So pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, the step towards this integration between digital assets, digital money, and the traditional banking institutions, traditional banking infrastructure is obviously happening, whether you like it or not. The acceleration, we've always talked about this. I think we underestimate, in the short term, technology and progress, and in the long run, you realize things are happening in weeks and months now. And all you have to do is look at this space or AI and realize, if you go back 4 or 5, cycles of technological innovation or technological progress to whether it was the internet era or before that, the speed at which stuff is happening and the disruption at which it's occurring to industries is pretty unprecedented. So yeah, this is another, another example of that. And a lot of people have always said, and I've spent, virtually my whole career in financial services on Wall Street. And a lot of people have always said, the US has too many banks, but try to go get a loan. And a lot of people would feel differently, that it is hard to go down the street and get a loan today. So it'll be interesting to see what services, if these are ultimately approved, what services they expand upon, because many a bank have started out as we were going to keep it simple and just take deposits and make loans. And then you turn around and, you've got another too big to fail bank on your hands. So I think it'll be interesting to see how far these groups go over time. But yeah, getting these conditional approvals is obviously a major step.
Yeah. And I don't know if in all cases, I would assume, I know in Ripple and Circle's case, the goal is to get this, I guess, fully across the finish line and also apply for a charter account with the Fed. And that would basically be crypto wired into the traditional finance system, full stop. What they do with it from there would have to be seen, but that is a bit of the, I guess, the Northern Star that they're marching towards on this particular topic. So pretty cool. So moving on to the market structure bill here. We've talked about this. It was moving along, and then we had the government shutdown for 45 days or whatever it was, and now they're back open, making some progress. It's a day by day situation. There's days that they're making small amounts of progress, and then even this morning before I put these notes together, there was another thing saying, "Oh, there's a delay, and it won't be making much progress until 2026." Well, I don't know how much longer Congress actually works. It's already December the 17th. I can't imagine much happens between now and the end of the year, but it seems like something that can get across the finish line in 2026. But boy, I sure hope it doesn't drag on much past Q2 at the latest, because then you get dangerously close to the midterms and all bets are off at that point. So
yeah. Well, I remember we talked about that very risk factor a few months back, is that if this thing slipped into the first or second quarter of next year,
yeah,
it who knows? I mean, all bets are off. So I'm like you. I'm optimistic that we'll see some momentum coming out of the holiday season in January. I think one of the big challenges is going to be, there's going to be a lot of discussion around the new Fed chair or that appointment, and just listening to a lot of year end and sort of forecasts for next year, webinars and events over the last few weeks from my perch, just trying to help sort of frame up 25 and help frame up what to expect in 26. One of the things that keeps coming up is, this K-shaped economy, and the notion that, you have a lot of consumers who are in the bottom part of that K that are not doing as well, and sentiment and wages and unemployment and those types of fears. And so all that to say, from a macro perspective, 26 is shaping up to be a pretty pivotal year from the standpoint of not just this legislation for crypto, but also how the government is going to handle that K-shaped economy, what they're going to do with rates, the Fed. So a lot of big things, and you hate to think that this bill gets sucked up into all of that, because the structure bill has, long been something that I think we in the industry feel like could really open the floodgates to not necessarily higher prices, but just much more adoption. Our headlines would be a multiple of what they are today in terms of institutional and government adoption, and ultimately consumers having, hopefully more comfort in participating in the space.
Yeah, it's, to me, that the like passing a bill with market structure is rather simple. It puts out rules that people can follow with, decent certainty that they're not going to get sued because the rules change. Because right now the rules are very opaque or don't exist.
Yeah.
And it's too much risk for some people to want to build a business in this area. So you're right. I think that we could see a huge avalanche of change, but again, we need some rules and some guidelines.
Yeah.
Anyways, our next topic is XRP and Solana joining forces. So this is true, partially not true. A bit of a clickbait headline there, I guess, at some level on my part. So there has been some announcements where you'll be able to buy XRP on the Solana blockchain. To me, there's not much utility in that. That's just more of like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back, I think, by these teams. There's some rumor and some speculation that Solana is really good at consumer, so retail-focused apps, so DeFi and speed of execution there. XRP was more of a settlement rail. So it's almost like the commercial and the retail versions of crypto in some sense. There's a lot of things you can argue there, but I think at a high level that works. And the coming together, I'm not quite sure the motivation here, but it'll be interesting to kind of see how it rolls out over the course of 2026. So,
well, XRP's founder, or not founder, I should say, let me back up, the CEO has come out and said one of the things they want to be is the Amazon of crypto, right? And so you to the average person, you say Amazon, they know what that is.
Right.
And I think now people understand that Amazon is much more than a retail store. And so it's, to me, watching how, whether it's XRP wanting to look to start to have a more of a consumer focused complexion to the business, or this is
Yep.
just one of many pilot projects, like you said, that we could have replaced this headline with any number of others.
Mm-hmm.
It's something to watch, right? Something
Yep.
to pay attention to see, because like you said, they've always been focused more on that business, enterprise, government customer at XRP or at Ripple.
Yep.
And we'll have to watch and see, do they look to add some consumer facing solutions in the next few years.
Yeah. When Solana did their part of this announcement, they dug deep into the history of XRP on social media. There's the number 589, so 589. It's a long story, but it's been rumored, and I say this with no sarcasm, but it's been rumored. Rumor is the important word there. That at some point XRP be worth $589 because these series of events happened. So like when all Solana did was tweet 589, like it set off the interwebs. And I was just a big eye roll for me, but I was like, I guess good on them. They knew how to stoke the community and get the eyeballs on it. But
Yeah.
maybe this is part of the plan. Some people might argue. So
yeah.
Cool. Well, a more serious topic. So Bitwise, their index ETF, it's the top 10 cryptos, is now trading. That the ticker is BITW, and it's live and trading. So you could go buy one thing and be diversified in a crypto and not have to think about it.
Yeah, it's 10 of the I guess from a market cap index,
Market weighted,
market weighted. 10 of the largest crypto assets, so BTC, ETH, XRP, SOL, ADA, and others. And we were talking about this offline, like from an advisor perspective, does it give advisors who are investing in the space through, a Bitcoin ETF or an Ethereum index product, does it give them some incentive to swap those out and adopt this solution? Bitwise has made a concerted effort to try to educate the advisor community and try to get in front of more and more financial advisors, and the effort to try to get them into the space. Now that they've got an ETP ETF that allows that diversification, not without some disagreement or controversy about its components, but the reality is there's a lot of people out there that manage money for individuals and families and institutions that are indexers and or closet indexers and or are using the low cost funds because they don't believe in active management, or they don't believe that there's a lot of value that can be added by active management, much less alternatives. So that's kind of their religion, and this gives them another option to get some of that diversification to a space. It's crazy that 25 just feels like there's been so much product launch in the ETF, ETP space outside of just crypto, like just in general,
But there has been, but there's actually more pending applications for different crypto ETFs to launch than there are actually active in the market. That's how, 2026 could potentially, I think, over double what is the current product offerings and number of offerings, at least. So the one thing interesting about this index product is if you've been holding a Bitcoin or Ethereum ETF, technically, if you wanted to be in this and use the same dollars, you would have to sell, right, and move into that. And taxable event, good or bad there, depending on what your basis is. But like, if there was the ability to do an in-kind, not in-kind, if you could withdraw your Bitcoin or Ethereum and hold them, it'd be interesting if the world exists, and it's probably not today, but maybe in the future, where you could offer in Bitcoin or Ethereum to get BITW, and then maybe your basis kind of, it's not a taxable event, I guess is what I'm getting at there. It'd be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm almost certain that doesn't exist right now, but that'd be a cool scenario to help people that have been in, the ETFs for a while, that have seen some gains, even with the prices being down right now, to be able to, again, save on some taxes. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's definitely a really great point. One of the areas that's rapidly growing in conversations, and I think advisors have been having this conversation with certain segment of their clients for a while. But if you think about just what's happened in the market over the last, really since '08, after the GFC, with the exception of 22 and what happened, in COVID, there's been a lot of wealth generated in the market, and
Mhm.
yet the market's become more and more concentrated. And so you have a lot of clients that are sitting on more and more highly appreciated assets and stocks, and yet the market's becoming more concentrated with the, Magnificent Seven or the top 10, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I think similar conversation, with people that own highly appreciated Bitcoin or other highly appreciated digital assets, like,
Mhm.
they want to diversify, but they don't want to take that tax hit. So
Right.
yeah, some really, thorny issues to sort of
Mhm.
sort out for folks, and taxes and the implications of taxes around certain decisions are meaningful drivers of behavior.
Agreed. Yep, and I imagine that will continue to be thorny.
Oh yeah,
That's not something that gets worked out really easily. So,
yeah,
anyways, our next topic is Mr. Jamie Dimon. He is changing his tune, Andres. He, he for the longest time, him and Warren Buffett were in lockstep when they talked about crypto. Apparently,
yeah.
he got a different memo, and now he's all positive. So
Well, when you're the CEO and chairman of the largest bank in the country, you have I guess you have the big microphone. If you decide
mhm,
you want to change your tune, you could do that. And some people will go back in time and ask, "Hey, didn't you say this?" But
yeah,
he probably wouldn't be the first person to do that. But
no,
it is notable when somebody of his position, stature, highly respected
yeah,
individual and executive comes out and says, effectively, everything's going to be tokenized. We've been studying this space. We've been doing this.
right.
It's yeah.
They
It's
went from, well, his tune used to be, if I catch an employee that buys Bitcoin, I'm going to fire them. That was, I'm paraphrasing, but
yeah,
that's exactly what he said. To
yeah.
basically now they're the experts in crypto. Like, it's amazing how things change. This is not surprising that they ended up here. It was going to happen, but they, you know, the the tone change, and how positive, how quickly that happened this fall is is interesting to watch. And we mentioned this offline. All these CEOs of these big banks, that are at least willing to talk about crypto publicly, or in little sound bites, for the last 4 years of the 4 years of the Biden administration, they were all anti-crypto, right? Now that you have an administration that's pro-crypto, they largely, or maybe all of them, I haven't really studied it, seem to be positive. Is it just that they're following the administration, or what do they truly believe? Because now they've said two very different polar opinions. So I don't know. Well, maybe we'll find out over time. But
Well, a lot of the wealth is, in the stock, right?
yes,
So, like you have always said, pay attention to what they do, not what they say. So,
hmm,
I think what they are is they're largely tied to the performance of, the stock. And
right.
so, where is the growth happening in these larger financial institutions?
Yep.
You look at BlackRock, you look at JP Morgan, you look at many of the asset managers. The growth is in areas that we're talking about. It's in non-traditional assets.
Hmm.
It's in creating new products, and new solutions for clients. Why are there so many ETFs and ETPs being launched? Well, it's because it's what advisors want to buy.
Hmm.
Why are they getting into crypto and digital assets when they didn't 4 years ago? Well, it's because they have regulatory, you know, uh, let's say regulatory support, and that's where the market's going. So that's where they need to be, or they're going to get left behind. They're going into alts. They're going into all these
Hmm.
areas. So yeah, I mean, the I think the cascade of tokenization and crypto infrastructure is a very big focus of 26. I personally am of that view that we'll see a lot of utility related conversations, and a lot of the conversation will shift from crypto is this thing, I don't really understand it, to major institutions, major companies, major leaders are going to be talking about how it's key to the technology, which is everything today, right?
Mhm.
uh, is key to the strategic um, conversation, at their company. That doesn't mean all the people embrace it, understand it, always say the nicest things, but I think they
Right.
realize that it's table stakes at this point.
Yep. I would agree with that. So our next topic, there might be a new digital asset treasury. Well, actually, there is a new digital asset treasury coming,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's backed by what many people say is the real money on Wall Street and or around the world for that matter. And it's they have big ambitions. I did read that about how they basically want to be the influencer when it comes to Bitcoin. So some of the names that are included in this digital assets treasury company is Cantor Fitzgerald, Tether, so the largest issuer of the stablecoin USDT, SoftBank from Japan, Jack Mallers is CEO and founder of Strike, um, and 21 is another one major player in Bitcoin. So, eh, you know, how long it takes them to amass assets of meaningful size, it'll be seen. I was mentioning before we started recording what I found interesting about this is yes, they may end up being big. I would imagine this one is this very quietly a company that goes and does it, buys it, versus you contrast that with the way that MicroStrategy's strategy is with Michael Saylor, right? He's very much out there, the cheerleader standpoint. Will money gravitate towards one or the other potentially? Obviously, MicroStrategy has a huge head start. I think they're approaching 5% of all Bitcoin ever in existence that they currently hold. So pretty cool to kind of see more of this happening. But again, from our last episode, we talked about how the rules around this stuff of digital asset companies might change when it comes to being included in an index or not. So some stuff in the air, but if these guys are getting into it, I'm guessing it's going to be okay. So
Yeah, you take comfort sometimes from the participants. Doesn't mean they're right all the time. It doesn't mean that
right.
they will get it wrong, right? Anybody that's seen the cycles are economic and studied economics knows that the banks and the economists and politicians get it wrong all the time, right? You oftentimes don't see what's coming, and it gets it catches us off guard, right? There's lots of examples of that. I think what to me what's notable is, okay, who all is involved, and number two, these digital asset treasury companies, we're seeing them, formed. And to your point, like, it was about who was hyping it.
Mhm.
Seemed like that was the approach, and who was behind it with the bullhorn versus almost anything else. And so to see uh, more traditional institutional type firms behind something like this, to me, is noteworthy. If they come out on social media over the next few weeks,
Mhm.
uh, or there's a spokesperson making the rounds on the talk shows, I'll probably have a different point of view the next time we
Right.
record.
Yep.
But yeah, we'll see. I guess having more institutional and diversified ownership of Bitcoin, to me, cannot be a bad thing, right?
Mhm.
It's a little bit unnerving or scary that you'd have one holder owning 3, 4, 5% of any single asset.
Right.
I've said this a couple of times to people, depending on what happens with strategy and depending on what happens with the capital markets, that they are, so tied in now with Bitcoin and Bitcoin with them. Any little foot fault rattles this whole space.
Mhm. Yep.
And so you don't want to see, a major government bailout or some big Wall Street bailout. And so
Mhm.
broad institutional ownership of the asset class, not just Bitcoin, to me, is a good thing. So if that comes about as a result of this 21 Capital, great.
Yep. Agreed. Um, Last topic for today. Paul Atkins, so the chairman of the SEC, was recently on Fox Business, it appears here, and basically made the comment that all U.S. markets will be on chain within the next 2 years. I would have thought, even if he had said all markets to be on the blockchain within the next 5 years, I believe him. But 2 years seems rather aggressive. But maybe he knows something that I don't, probably. And so basically tokenization and the ability to basically tokenize traditional assets and get them on a blockchain is not an if anymore, it's a when. And it's rapidly becoming a now, which is pretty awesome. So
Yeah. I was I was gonna say jokingly, if this was a an interview he did that was on in 3 in the morning and
yeah.
it wasn't on live TV, I'd say, okay, but yeah, the fact that he goes on a major network and then makes this announcement and obviously
Hmm.
given his position, yeah, I'm with you. It's a matter of, when, not if. And I think
Hmm.
just back to the earlier comments, we were talking about Jamie Dimon and the comments that he's made and the tune changing for him. And you can go and look at any number of the CEOs of these major financial institutions and see if 10 or 15 years ago, it was introducing, you know, alternatives. Today, it's introducing,
Hmm.
digital asset infrastructure. It's
Right.
introducing stable coins. It's introducing all these new partnerships. So it doesn't stop here, but yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a matter of it's a matter of when, not if.
Yep. That is true. Well, I in that spirit, so I think that's a wrap on this episode and on 2025 for us. So I want to thank Andres for being along on this journey with me this year, and everyone again for listening. So to stay updated, you can find us in any podcast player by searching Teton Crypto Capital or the Weekly Crypto Check-in. And feel free to leave us a review. We'd love it. Whether in your podcast player or you find us on LinkedIn, you can like the post. And we'll be back in 2026 for more of these. Appreciate everyone and take care.
The information presented in this podcast is for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, trading, or any other advice. The content provided is general in nature and not tailored to any individual's specific circumstances. Always conduct your own due diligence and consult with a professional financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Cryptocurrency trading involves significant risks, including, but not limited to, the potential for loss of all or a portion of your investment, market volatility, and regulatory uncertainty. The hosts, guests, and producers of this podcast are not responsible for any decisions or actions taken based on the information discussed herein. Cryptocurrency is not legal tender in many jurisdictions and is subject to market risks. Past performance does not guarantee future results. This podcast does not endorse or guarantee any investment outcomes or results. Use of this podcast implies your acceptance of this disclaimer.